Murder, a monster, nasty person.
The nicest convicted murderer you've ever met in your life.
I spent 20 years in prison for murder. So Robert McGill was murdered in Rickmansworth. He was shot with a pump-action shotgun 5 times. I am really grateful for the life I've got now. Regardless of the 20 years I spent in prison, it's moulded me, and whatever I've got left in life now will benefit others.
Welcome, Kevin, to the Turning Your Adversity into an Asset podcast. We've met before, but it's good to connect again. I think let's start there because interesting connecting with other like-minded criminals on a TV show, but very interesting experience meeting people from all walks of life, but all having some common sort of mutual grounds of connection. But we met at I think we're allowed to say now because yours has just been released, Channel 4 documentary, Kids on Cons, they called it in the end, didn't they? I don't think that's what they told us they were going to call it. I think
Teens on Cons, or Cons and Teens.
Teens on Cons. Yeah. It was interesting when we all met because we all knew we were there because we're criminals or ex-criminals or whatever. We'll go into that.
Yeah. Well, I have been convicted for other crimes, so yeah.
Okay. But we're all very different, weren't we? It's almost like we've been stereotyped into these different characters. Not stereotyped, but they were like, they fit this cast, this character. And you had in my mind, a very strong character. I could say what I think that is, but what would you say your character is?
Positive.
Yeah.
We're all different at home. You have difficulties at home, didn't you, that affect your mood. But outside of that, as a person, I'm very positive.
Yeah.
Happy-go-lucky. I like to have a laugh.
Yeah.
And go forward. And quite a strong character.
Yeah.
In my makeup. Yeah. When we did the Teens and Cons, or Cons and Teens, although the setting was gladiator type, criminal violence, dungy, because it was a grey concrete building in a gladiator's pit, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So the setting and everything added to the scene, and of course all served time in prison. However, I think that once that came out, the flip side of all of that added to a great outcome to show kids what it was really like in prison in terms of our experiences as prisoners. Mm-hmm. And I think that if it stopped one kid going to prison, which it will stop a lot more than that, as well as adults, then it really did do some good. Yeah. But anyway, that's my point on me, I think.
Yeah, you're definitely a joker, the funny one that was making us all crease up laughing, and I've been following you on Instagram since, and I know you like to have a laugh. And you're not the your stereotypical person that you would have think would be associated to the crimes that you have done or been accused of, which we're obviously going to go on to now. Why do you think that is as well?
Murder, the police say, is the worst crime. It's the end of the road. I don't agree with that. It's a very bad crime. I think paedophilia is up there with the worst crimes. It's strange that you can be considered a monster and a nasty person because of what you're labelled, and yet if I was to have a camera on my shoulder and show the interactions I have through the day with absolute strangers, I have no conversation with. I walk past someone, something will happen, it'll be a nice day, or something will come in my head. I think I've got a form of Tourette's, and I would just say something there and then to that person and me. We'll all have a nice response, and I'll just walk off and have a nice day.
Yeah.
Now, is that act? Is it naturally me? That's naturally me. So the fact is that people are commenting a lot about how I am as a person when I say this. I can be violent, absolutely. But if you were to use the flip side of that, if I'd have been in the army, they said I've excelled to the highest levels and probably been decorated because I've got that makeup with me, where I'd been deemed a decent public of society. But because I come out of prison and I've got those, not say redeeming factors, but I can commit myself to a cause, for instance, king and country, but then that violence will be used positively. But you go into prison and miscarriage of justice, and you're dealing with a situation that is unnatural and it's a jungle of violence. And because you can be good at that, you're deemed a bad person, but inside of you, you're good. So that's very difficult for people to try and get the concept of that and understanding of it. So all these boxers and professionals, or the soldiers that go to war and kill under a legal licence by this country, look at what this country did, where they used to send all the soldiers out the trenches, because you're trained to obey orders, to soak up the bullets of the opposing enemy, to wear them down, and they was committing our countrymen to death. So is that how do you feel about the government doing that all these years ago? So I think if you look at things collectively across the board and see, I'm probably getting a little bit deep for you there, but it's just a few thoughts I've had recently about how I'm perceived and how the government are perceived and what they've done over the years and what they do now. But I'm a nice person.
Yeah.
I generally believe that regardless of what my sentence was. And I think the podcasts and my interactions across the board with MPs, actors, charity workers, normal people show that overall that is my nature, regardless of the conviction for murder.
Definitely. I mean, there's a difference between someone that's done something that's bad, and we're going to get onto whether that was done or not, and all sorts of things that come with your story. But there's a difference between someone that's done something bad and someone who is bad. And there are, on the flip side, people that don't do things bad, but are bad people. You know,
look at the two gentlemen who got sentenced to 20-something years and 19 years. All right, they shouldn't have gone out with the tools that they did have for a car thief. And they killed a car thief trying to steal from them. They're both decent people. One of them got 20-something years and one got 19 years, a son. If they'd have gone out with baseball bats and battered him about, fair, okay, but they went out with some a samurai sword and a knife. However, do they need to go to prison for 29 years? No. They've now destroyed their families, as well as the family, the gentleman they killed trying to steal their car, or burgle their house, or whatever. But sometimes the laws in this country aren't right. For instance, I think there's a farmer being sentenced to prison. It's on the news for clearing a ditch up in the Yorkshire Dales or somewhere. He's been sent to prison for that. The country's just mental.
But yet you've got people that have great jobs, haven't done anything wrong, despicable people. I remember once there was in the paper these Oxford University students that were going up to homeless people and burning £50 notes in front of their face.
Yeah, disgusting.
I mean, but they probably haven't, well, they've definitely not committed a crime in their life. So how do we determine good or bad? And I've met you a couple of times now, and you're one of the nicest guys I've met. You wouldn't know your background and you wouldn't even assume it. So let's go around into the background now. So tell me a little bit about you and your journey, because, well, not a little bit, let's go into it. Who is Kevin Lane and what's the labels that have been stuck to you since?
So, as a child I grew up, my mother and father separated as a young child, about 4. I was always a child who liked fun, so I would do ventriloquist acts. I'd pretend to be actors, or Norman Wisdom or Frank Spencer, and I'd do acts from my mum's friends, and when I was out I'd do them. So that was in me as a child, and you cannot dispute that. You look at different children and you see how happy they are. So we look at our children and you see the differences in their personalities. So that was me as a child. I grew up like that right away, although I suffered as a child from not seeing my father sporadically for years sometimes and then not. So I grew up with a family, quite a large family of 7 of us. I've got a stepbrother which was 8 as well. Don't see him from my father's side. He died, my father, and his wife died. So my brother Liam went to live with the grandparents. I've lost touch with them, so I went to prison. So that's a bit about me as a child. Grew up in the village in Harefield. Great, loved the village. Lots of children to do in a village with lakes and canals and farms and woods, motorbikes and everything that Amazons and swallows, anything you can associate with that. I had a brother, had some problems health-wise, so that caused me to have to fight a lot at school. Worked very hard as a young kid, loved work. And then I got expelled from school, but I had my own place at 15. I was renting with a friend of mine who got deported from America. His father used to whip him with a electric lead. He went on sprayed burglary for about 3 years before they caught him. And he ended up coming to England, got a flat, went to a new school because I got expelled, like I say. I met that girl. They had a security company. I started working licensed premises as a doorman, but I didn't look like a doorman. I looked like a manager, so I could come up to you and chat away to you, which is great, rather than have to lift my hands up, boxing at the time. Loved sport all the way through as a young kid. Had a few problems with my knees, as I've got again now, bad knee, but so I had to step out of sport and step back in. So I started working licensed premises, and that took me off into another area of criminality. So all I was working, I bought my first house when I was 18, a flat. And then I bought a house. I was buying one a month at one point by the time I was 21 and flipping them. But by then I'd been arrested for kidnapping. So I worked very hard, loved work, and I loved earning a lot of money through work. However, my good side of me, my heart side, took me into the bad side of the world, where if you had a problem, then I would say, bloody done what? Give us his address. Cheeky bastard. And I'd go around there and do things, and I suppose I was misguided because I didn't have a father to say, yeah, your intentions are good, but they're wrong. But your intentions are good. What about the impact of the police arresting you for that? And what's going to have on your life? Didn't see that at the time. I see it as
How old were you then?
Bloody hell, I was 18.
Yeah, because I can remember about that age, 18 to 19, sitting down in front of a probation officer on a pre-sentence report and her saying, you know, you're going to go to prison for 8 years, and being like, so? I don't think you understand the consequences of your actions when you're that age, do you? You know, it's just like, it won't happen.
Boulders,
who gives
bro,
a hell,
don't give
you
a
know?
monkeys.
Yeah.
Sad. But I don't know if your father's alive. Is he still
No.
today? Okay, so I believe a strong figure in the house, a family environment is very important. Very. My dad would kill me if he finds out. Old saying all of us have said, but I never had to say that. I just have to say, my mum finds out, she fucking hit me.
Yeah.
Bit different, but like my mum would have
take
dealt with me. Yeah, I remember it by the time I was 15. I did some things that used to drive my mum absolutely to the end of her tether. You can imagine with all of us in the house.
Yeah.
She'd bleed and end up punching me. And I said, is that the best you can do? Cheeky little bleeder, you know. But by then I was fighting men in the village. That would never have happened if I'd had a father. I went off then, working the security doors, and your life changes then because you're meeting men from different areas, different ages. I had 30 and 40-year-old men and, 50-year-old men working for me. When I was 18, I was 21 by the time I had my security company, 2021. 11 stone 7, saying to men, if you take liberties with anybody, then that's going to upset me because you'll lose me a contract and lose me a lot of money. And if I took money out of your pocket, then you wouldn't be happy. So please understand why I wouldn't be happy. So don't go heavy-handed with people. You're here to remove them, not to beat them up. Okay? They are our customers. And that was my approach, and the company grew very quickly. But with that comes a completely different side. So I went into the security for the camera security side of things as a business stepping stone as a springboard for that. But then, of course, it just grew clubs and pubs and stuff. And so I didn't get into the camera security because I got banged up for a kidnapping. And I was going to do camera security in this country with an American company. And a friend of mine who was somewhat older than me, he was a successful business, and we were going to go in it together. I'll be the salesman, he does the technical side of things with the office side of it. We'd have been a franchise in England for camera security in 1991. Well, look at that. I got banged up for, like I say, a kidnapping, which I did do.
And how did that change you? Did things different when you came out of that? Because that was obviously your first taste of prison.
Yeah, well, I just bought a house. Kim had my second son, Tommy, so he was born, and I'll get remanded. Coming up into prison, I went into an old Victoria prison in Reading. But I found it exciting because it was a few hundred people in there, a small environment with a lot of decent old criminals, not like they are now, Christ, they're just rat bleeding kennels. They are disgusting with the criminality. The common criminal now has no respect for humanity or humans because they're robbing each other and sticking spoons up their backsides to get their puff out. That never happened years ago. So it shows the level of respect and how we respect others is right gone out the window. Yeah. But when I went into Reading, I went with my best mate and we got banged up together. The only time I've ever been tooed up with someone. So that was for a little while, 4 months. And then he got bail. I got bail at an old-style committal because the police got caught out lying and falsifying statements again. And I went back to prison and got guilty and went to prison again for 2 years, which I did. The jury said they made a wrong decision. Come back and told the judge that. The judge said, I understand there'll be a bail application and an appeal hearing. And I said, don't bother. To my solicitor, I said, I did it. I'm happy with the sentence I've got. I could have got a lot more. And the judge said I was a vigilante. Taking the law into my own hands. So I can understand what you're saying, but what you did was terrible and wrong, and I accept that at the time. So that was, I still didn't realise at the time, for some years to come, that what I did, my approach to it was wrong. So I said to the probation officer when I got sentenced for that, she said, would you do it again? I went, yeah, I would. Not very good, I didn't get parole. But I got 2 weeks. I wouldn't say that now because it's different. So, and here I am here now after serving a sentence for murder, which I got arrested for.
So let's step back a bit. So what happened in between? So you got released from one of these sentences. What happened in between to get you to the stage where you get convicted of murder? So
I come home, I set up a business I thought next thing is in my mindset would be recycled rubbish, clothes, concrete, crushed concrete, back in, again, 1992, 93. So 93 that was, and I had a yard with what's called a big Nissan house, like an aircraft hangar. And I separated the yard off and charged rents for it and then kept part of it for myself. So I had to rave in there, things like that. It was advertised on Kiss FM and Judge Jules and Roy the Roach and all good DJs of the day were playing. I separated from the mother of my children at the time, the yard, and I would just give it all up. And I buggered off. I said, well, I've had enough. I'm going to go to a new country. I'll be far enough away from my home to not keep interacting with my partner who we was looking to separate. So I went to Tenerife, hated it. Kim came out there with the kids 6 weeks later. That didn't go well. I was a young man in Tenerife, say no more about that. And then I had a lot of problems violence-wise with people on the island. Again, because I was approached by a gentleman who's known in England, and he's dead now, so I'm not going to speak about him. But he asked me if I could sort something out. He had some ecstasy tablets. In the day they were Doves, really good ones. And I said, yeah, I know people that want them. And I did. I mean, they were bringing in 1,000 to 2,000 E's a week, sometimes 2 weeks. And at the time, 100 E's was £10.50 out when it was out of season on 100. In season, £12.50 100. So 1,000 E's was 12.5 grand. You think of it like that. A lot of money, and you're getting 2,000 E's a week, it's £25,000 back in 1991, 93. So I got involved in that for a while. And so those ecstasy tablets would be sold in one night by 7 different people who bought them. And there's 16,000 youngsters coming into Tenerife every 4 days. But anyway, it's a bit like mini Britain, and the locals got together, Londoners. So what are we going to do about Kevin Lane doing these E's? And they said, some fella said, what are you on about? He does one night where he's done and shut shop and gone. Well, he doesn't even come, and it's not even him, it's people are buying them. So they put some fellas on me to weigh me in, give me a proper good hiding. What had I done wrong? Nothing. But the E's I was getting were the best. So I went and found one of them, had a set 2 of him. They didn't go down well, but that smoothed the thing out for a little while. I only just got there. Then I had a run in with one of John Palmer's heavies. That was over drugs again, talking about drugs in front of my children. Bit of a hypocrite, really, I know, when I'm importing these. I accept that, but they shouldn't have been talking about drugs in a golf club, private golf club that I lived on, in front of my kids, the bar staff. That caused a problem. I complained to the manager. Next thing I got this heavy in front of me and 2 other fellas. That escalated into a straightener.
And how old are you at this time? Just put this into a timeline. Okay.
23.
You're still quite young.
Yeah, young kid with 2 kids. I was a young boy with 2 kids and a missus, really attractive missus, and I'm having an argument with this great big bullhead, massive fellow he was. So I weighed him in and all, unfortunately. I come out okay with that. Next thing I've got people looking for me on the island to weigh me in, a big army of doormen. Kim and the kids came back to England. I stayed on the island for a few weeks. I'm like, let's sort it out. We'll have another go if you want. I said, he can't. He's come back to England. He's gone to hospital.
Was you fueled up alcohol-wise, drug-wise at this point? Or was just...
No, just I was complaining. The geezer said, you want to calm down? I said, it's got fucking nothing to do with you. Stay out of it.
Because it's actually bizarre, because my story is actually very similar to this, but it doesn't escalate in the ways that yours does. But I worked abroad in Napa and Magaluf, and I was getting myself into trouble with the nightclub owners, the bouncers. I was getting slashed with knives, fighting them. But it was only when I had a drink or drugs in me. If I was sober, I was all right. But it looks like you had this just in you.
Yeah, it just in me. It's like, don't be rude to me. Don't threaten me, because you will get an instant reaction out of me. Unfortunately, I understand it now over the years. And
where do you think that comes from?
Well, I think as a child, not having a father, not having what all the other kids had, my mother worked hard, trying to provide for 4 children, and then we eventually grew. And then fighting for my brother, and seeing ourselves maybe not as fortunate as other families, and then that has drive in you, a bit of anger in you.
Wanting to take it out on the world kind of thing?
No, I wouldn't give in. I used to say to myself, I won't give in.
Doesn't matter who it is kind of thing.
I don't care what's happening. I won't give in. I'm not going to let it affect me.
Right.
I'm going to keep going.
Because most 23-year-olds, if they were confronted or jumped by a load of local guys that were involved with some serious things, would be like, right, I'm on the first plane out of here. But you didn't. You thought, I'm going to carry on. And is that...
You don't realise at the time it just happens, because that's your makeup as a person. Just bang, it's done, Okay. You do have an option when you get older to say, I'm not going to go there, I'm not going to do that, because I may react in a manner that ain't right for me. It's a life licence. So, no, it's a bit different for me now, but then it wasn't.
Of course. So where did it go from there?
So Kim and the kids came back. It wasn't going to be resolved. The fella said he was going to kill me when he came back to Tenerife. I thought, God, I've come away from England from all this trouble and had violence in England with nightclub doormen. Again, trying to take a liberty with me because I look young and stupid. And that ended up very bad. So I thought, I've got to get out of this bleeding country. Went to Tenerife. Ended up coming back from Tenerife. And then got nicked for murder some months later. pulled in for an inquiry. Didn't realise at the time the extent and the depths of it, which has since transpired a complete fit up.
So this leads us to, if you're watching this on YouTube, everybody, you will see the book that's behind me. If you're listening to this on the podcast, then this is Fitted Up and Fighting Back. And for the international audience, fitted up means stitched up, framed.
Framed.
I think that's a good way of putting it. And the UK's Mr. Shawshank. So tell us about that.
I got
a book. It was a book, by the way, that I'm pointing to.
Yeah, it's not an audio. Yeah, I should have done it in audio because the book does really well. But I wrote the book when I was away. A barrister said to me, "Your book will make a great film, Kevin, and it sets your case out." I don't think he understood how I'd write the book at the time, and nor did I. But the book has become an excellent read, as well as factual and interesting and intellectual. Nearly 5 stars on Amazon. But the book itself was written with the purpose of bringing attention to my case and setting out what happened to me. And I wrote that in 2004. Had a number of interests about publishing it, and I just didn't do it. And I just thought there's more to this yet. And I'm glad I waited, because now the book has other information in it that I didn't have at the time. So it's worth the wait. It's coincided with me being released and such. So
did the book actually get you released, or?
No,
Okay.
I published a book 2 years ago whilst I got recalled. I'm on a life licence, so I got recalled as part of that.
So how long did you spend in prison?
I spent 20 years in prison for the murder. I got arrested for the contract killing on the 10th of January, held. A number of things happened in the police station. They took my fingerprints twice. They took me for an ID parade. It wasn't ID'd. A black bag that had my print on was taken out of the exhibits room. It wasn't signed out, but it was definitely taken out. It was the only time it was taken out of the exhibits room whilst I was in the police station. I was taken for 2 sets of prints. The bag was sent off to be printed again. It'd been all through the home national computers, Ireland, Scotland as well. No match to me. And then they find a print on the bag. They come back and arrest me 16 days later after releasing me on the 10th, after holding me for 2 days, or 3 days. And then they said, under new forensic evidence found, we've got names print on the bag, it's got firearm residue on the thumbprint, and it's connected to it's housed a gun. So that got me remanded. And then the police built a case around me. So over the years, I finally got convicted. I had 2 trials. I had a Cody, and there was 2 original suspects who got arrested for this murder. And I didn't realise at the time, but I was being set up, and it's all explained in the book, and it's factual because BBC have reported on this, Panorama, Guardian, so many papers have reported on it, Private Eye, etc., etc., etc. And then, like I say, it's been on the BBC News several times, my case. And I didn't realise at the time, but a corrupt police officer in my case, who's subsequently sent to prison for 4 years, some years after, for other offences, was working with the original suspects, and they fabricated a case around me and put me in prison again. Thought that'd be an appeal point. And I went to prison. I had a trial. I didn't realise at the time that the co-defendant had struck a deal that he would be released halfway through for supplying information on me and other murders that he said I committed.
How many did you say that you'd committed?
Well, there was 3 police forces waiting to dock arrest me if I got a not guilty and unsolved. And I was saying, well, if he knows so much about them, which I know now, why don't you go and ask him? And if you're charged with murder and you're supplying information on that murder, then the jury should have been made aware of that to say, well, how come you know so much? You're charged with joint enterprise of being at the scene when the murder happened. Yeah, the judge acquitted him halfway through, knowing that all this information existed and a lot more.
So just for everybody listening, because obviously I know you a little bit now, you've shared your story a million times, but for people that haven't heard of you before, we're talking about, you're getting accused right now of being a hitman.
Yes.
Right, okay. We just need to wrap that in.
So that came up recently. It was £100,000 a hit. So the Times had listed a load of contractors, killers in this country, and they had me at number 1, £100,000, back when I was convicted. So I had all of that to deal with. I got convicted.
And that's quite a lot, isn't it? Because I know that, sometimes you can get 1,500 quid and get
500 quid someone to get shot for nowadays, so parts of London.
Yeah. So was you categorised as a premium
contract
hitman?
Cleaner, Hoover salesman. Let's get that right. All right. So the book was going to be Hitman or Hoover salesman, you decide. So when I went away for the kidnapping, I kidnapped someone in relation to stealing some equipment from my friend, or a firm of blokes did. He was put forward, I kidnapped him, it wasn't him, blah, blah, blah. But
that one you actually did though?
Yeah, I did that. Yeah.
So yeah, because this is just to share something, because I know that we were going to be doing this podcast for a while now.
Yeah.
I didn't want to dive too deep into everything that's happened because it is like spoiling the end of the film, right? So I know enough about you to be able to ask questions, but not the full picture. And something that was interesting was when I watched your clip on Channel 4 with this documentary, or the last one I was for some reason.
Yeah, save the best till last.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I didn't want to say it. No, I was quite calm in mine, but maybe I hit him intellectually. I don't know. But yeah, when I watched your extract, it was I think the Christian guy. You went in to describe what you'd done to some fella, and it was pretty graphic. In terms of the things that you did. So was that the kidnapping?
Yeah.
Right, because that in itself seemed like not far off something that could kill somebody.
So I'm surprised he's very lucky to be alive.
So do you want to? Are you happy to share that?
Yeah, like I say, I always worked. I went and worked. I had a security company. A fellow used to work for me who couldn't get enough work. He stopped working for me, and he started selling Kirby Hoovers. I had a function where they hired out the venue. He pulled up. He's driving a 944 Porsche or something like that. So what the f*** is the arse of Hoovers? I said, I could sell them. He said, oh yeah. I said, get me an interview. He said, more of a dare. So get me an interview. Went for an interview, did the 3 days training. I went out and sold 26 Hoovers in a weekend. Broke the world record. But I got paid on 16 because of finance and stuff like that. Some paid cash. I did that over a weekend, and then I was smashing records every month and becoming an area distributor. I got close with a factory distributor, an FD of the Kirby in this country, Kirby company, should I say.
And this is knocking doors, right? House. Yeah.
Cold calling and stuff like that, arranged appointments. But they had another office in different parts of the country, and so there was some equipment stolen from this office, some lads were put forward. I went down and took this fellow away. It was meant to have threatened a girl and a baby with a knife who informed on them. The police were called, the police couldn't do nothing about it. They came back, threatened the girl, went to the offices. I then got a call saying, can you do something about it? I went down and kidnapped this gentleman who was put forward, but it wasn't him, it was someone else. But he was put forward by the staff and the local people in the community. He accepts that, Will, and we're friends now, by the way. We did some restorative justice, doing a podcast soon together with James English.
The guy that you kidnapped?
Yeah, kidnapped him.
So what made you feel like you was the person that had to step in for that?
Well, Chris is my pal. They were football thugs. They come back. I say that, I've got pals with football thugs, with mad West Ham supporters, but they just go to football, and back in the day, they were young men, but they're not like that now, settled down with kids. However, I said, threatening a young baby with a knife, and a girl said, we're going to cut you. Give us an address, I'll go and see them. Off I went, vigilante. I thought, I'm having that. Chris is my pal. Police haven't been able to do nothing about it. Well, I will. Terrible what I'd done to him. Thank God the gentleman found him. He was walking his dog and stuff,
And what did you do?
I took him away. I came to the premises where he worked, and I had everybody in the premises, say captive, waiting for him to turn up. Couldn't use the phones and that. Took him away. Took him out of his car. Used violence on him, hitting him with an iron bar to the head and arms and stuff like that. It's terrible what I did. Got him in the car, took him to the woods, run his legs over a couple of times, and then put him on him again to make sure he was telling me the truth. So I've got a phone number. Phoned his phone numbers to check they were who they were, who he said they were, just to let him know. Took him to London, to a canal. The fellas I was with didn't know what I was going to do. So I'm going to drop him off down here. It was like a little verge by a canal. Took him down the canal and hit him over the head, sprayed him with CS gas and threw him in the canal.
Wow. So I guess, do you think that if you hadn't have done that the framed for murder would have been less plausible?
Yeah.
Because you fit the mould of what they were looking for, maybe.
Absolutely. And that type of thing I do. But then you have the other side of me and I say, not a chance. No, never. Never think so. After meeting me and not knowing that about me. That's why I would have made a good soldier. I've been told that by therapists.
And you say that, is that because you're low on the emotional spectrum? You can do those things without guilt or remorse, and you could quite easily do that in a battle scene. Why do you think you would be good in there?
Structure. I got a lot of respect for other people. So in authority, such as being in the army, you want to do well, you respect what you're there for. And I've got that about me too, being instructed to do whatever I'm told to do in terms of professionally.
Right. So you think it was more of, he was my friend, it was difficult to do what I did, but I felt like I
thought I could help him out. Yeah. I will oppose the aggression, and I'll meet them. So I perceive myself as a John Wayne of the world, but the acts I was doing were atrocious. And I certainly did it on the wrong person now, but a lot of the things I did were always of that nature. And that's the only one I can really say is two things I did to two people that I regret. And I look to see the other person and apologise to him as well when I see him one day. And I didn't have done what I'd done to him either.
But you're adamant to this day, all of these murders were completely, so it was a conspiracy against you.
Yeah, I'd never been arrested for anything like that. Kidnappings and such, yeah. Gun-wise, I'd never been arrested for. More so that when I was arrested for this murder, it was completely a shock to me. I didn't understand that how I'd been set up for it and being used. And now years later, it's since proven to be true.
And what was said to have been done? What murder took place?
So Robert McGill was murdered in Rickmansworth. He was shot with a pump-action shotgun 5 times, one close into the head when he's laying on the floor. And he was a local villain face in the area. And that was the contract killing.
When you say villain?
Face, he could, very capable man, very handy man. I mean, at 44, he could do 50 press-ups with someone, a teenager on his back. That's powerful, but a capable man. Anyway, he was killed. And Roger Vincent and Smith had connections to him. And some weeks before, the sister-in-law had hit Vincent's mother. I shouldn't mention his name, but hit the co-defendant's mother. McGill's niece was living with my co-defendant, and there was a dispute over that, and then Vincent's mother had been slapped. Or that my co-defendant's mother had been slapped. They kept all evidence out to implicate the co-defendant. But I never knew this at the time. I didn't realise that I was being put up as a fall guy, and absolutely did, and fell over as a result.
And what was your sentence? I know you said you served 21, but...
Well, I didn't get my sentence for 3 years after I was sentenced. It was handed to me, so that means it came from the Home Secretary, not the judge, which is a recommended sentence. The difference is, one, you have to serve at least, and then they will look to send you home.
Yeah. And
a tariff means that you can go home before your tariff if I want it. Well, I didn't anyway. I got a tariff and I went home on 20 years.
Well, how did you feel? And did they slip it under your door?
No, it was given to me going down to dinner on New Year's Eve by a screw no one really liked. I said, what is it? What do you want? He said, I've got something for you, Lane, and handed me the tariff. But in court, the police stood in the box and asked for the maximum sentence of 30 years to be imposed on me. What is going on? And they said, without a doubt, he was a gunman on this one. Without a doubt, he was a gunman on that, and he's committed other murders in this country. And I think they should never have been allowed to say that to the judge, because if I had been what they said, I'd have been in a police station well before now.
Yeah.
If I'd committed so many murders.
Nowadays, they don't even let you have a jury in there if they've been exposed to media or...
The jury weren't in on that occasion, but they told the judge that. Okay, in open, not open court, but apart from the jury. But they had 24-hour armed guard on the jury. You know they were talking to the jury for a number of 3 weeks. Of course they were, as well as the judge had an armed jury.
So how did you feel when you got that sentence? Was you expecting it? Did you
I knew I was going to
get... Did you swallow it? Did you think, fuck it, this is my life now? What was the...
Well, I knew I was going to get convicted by the way the evidence was. It was the way it was going. I thought, this ain't right. There's something wrong about this, you know. Like the co-defendant was saying, I should have been out in this now by now. They told me I'll get out because he had real bad, like, jittery stuff, like, and he couldn't hold himself together. And that came about. So I thought, something's not right here. What took place in the police station with the fingerprints and then finding the prints on the bag, and I wasn't getting all the evidence. I could see there was parts of the evidence missing, which is evidence in relation to my co-deed that was withheld because it implicated him. I won't go into that now, it takes it off another direction, but it's all in the book. And I said to my mum that this is going to go bad, you better prepare yourself, I'm going to get a guilty here, because I know something's wrong here, and I got the guilty. I went back to Belmarsh unit, special secure unit, because I was upgraded to triple category A by then. Permanent closed visits, bugging of illegal visits.
And why is that? And why is there the reference to Mr. UK Shawshank? Is there something behind that?
So I wrote over 10,000 letters when I got convicted. Started a big campaign.
Right, okay. So it wasn't about escaping?
No, I thought I'm not going to be beat again. Right. And that was every time I wrote a letter, it was like throwing a punch back, one step nearer to getting to the door. And that is how I took the fight to them. And I felt like I was climbing out of the belly of the beast, out of a massive hole. By doing that, so it was therapy for me in terms of, you might have me here, but I'm going to keep coming back at you. And I did for 20 years.
Was you holding on to a lot of anger?
You do at the beginning, and anger from hurt, from missing your kids, people dying, injustices and stuff like that. People have no idea what you suffer in prison. They think, oh yeah, but they are not nice places.
I've got a question for you. I mean, you said 21 years in prison, and I had short... Okay, 20 years. And I served short sentences, but I found myself even thinking, behaving and feeling different after those sentences, you know. Because you absorb it. I don't know, dressing differently, talking differently, just, I don't know, aspirations are different, you know. I feel like you're a sponge in those places, and you are a product of your environment. And if you're only talking with, I mean, it depends who you're spending your time with, but it's quite difficult to find a good crowd, you know, in some of their ones, especially young offenders that I went to twice.
It's not many mature people in young offenders.
No, everyone wants to get
Bell's always going.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And yeah. So that went a nice place. But how did 20 years, like 2 decades in prison, it changed you obviously, but it didn't change your sort of light-hearted personality, because you could have come out a very angry, very bitter, very resentful person, couldn't you? But you haven't let it be you. So
no.
What has been the changes, and how did that 20 years affect you?
Happy ground in prison. Find times that I can enjoy myself in there and have fun, drinking.
Making hooch, yeah. I've seen some of you. You're an expert
Parties,
hooch maker.
Going to the gym, having good people around me. I'm trying to find stuff you could just enjoy, my music.
It's a simple way of life. It's interesting, actually, because sometimes I say prison is one of the most peaceful places you can ever be. And people don't quite understand that. But I say when they lock the door, there's nothing you need to do, no one you need to be, nowhere you need to go, no bills to pay. You can just be present.
Relax.
And you're also safe. You know, when you're out on the wings, it might be a little bit different. But when that door's locked, you stick that TV on.
Well, I never.
No?
Never had a telly.
Oh, right. That's what you're on.
I didn't want one.
No? Okay.
I went for a period where I'd get it out of a weekend to watch a film that started coming on the pipeline system. I thought, well, that'd be nice. Let's have a look at these tellies. I've heard so much about them. Bleeding this, and I got it out, and then the video would stop. I would give the TV back. But then I used to get it out for Panorama. If they had a series on to do with miscarriage of justice or something, I'd say, "Can I have a telly,
popped
please?"
Up on it or something.
Yeah, well, I knew if I was, or if it was related to parts of my case, and I would say, "Can I have a telly?" Get it out of the office, put it up, and then give it straight back.
Because you wanted to write your letters and be more productive. Yeah.
Telly's a distraction. It's click, 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 click. Brain numbing. You're thinking about outside sometimes. It's not good for the brain. Opposed to years earlier.
Well, there you go. There's some value for everyone watching here. If you do 20 years in jail, don't have a TV.
Don't have a telly. All right, get into reading, writing, games, studying. You will. The hours will go. Playing an instrument with headphones on. Bloody hell, you'll be so involved in that, like a guitar or something.
Do you reckon you could have done another 10?
Yeah, because when I got to 10, I thought, God, how much more of this shit have I got to put up with? But you just keep shaking yourself down, coming out the door, having interaction with someone, a laugh and a giggle, and you find the goodness in people that sort of like recharges the battery. And that's what I was trying to do.
Okay, so you served 20 years in prison and you get released. Tell me about release day, because that must have been a day that you was thinking about. Did you think about that, or did you try and block it out for a long time? Or?
No, you always hold on to that, don't you? You've got to hold on to that and think, God, that is the drive, isn't it? Getting out.
What was your plan? Did you plan exactly what you were going to do to a T? Fresh haircut, down the pub, or what was it?
You had people to see that day. I got picked up with a friend of mine, Tony. It's a bit ad lib, really. I had to see my mum and people like that. But I couldn't go up to my mum for 2 weeks on the day I got released. They said, no, you're not going up to see your mother. You can't have an. I said, my mum's is an approved premises for me to be released to for the last 17 months. Why can't I go there now I've been released? No, you've got to stay where you are for 2 weeks. All mental restrictions on me like that. And I can't drive through Hertfordshire. I've got to go round it on the M40. Eventually they let me drive through it. But anyway, getting released was like, wow, sponge. Like,
is that where it happened, Hertfordshire?
Yeah.
I'm actually from Hertfordshire as well. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Small world.
You look like me. I reckon you might have done it.
I'm a younger you. I just hope I don't get 20 years in jail now.
I'm going to put that in an appeal point. So I was just full of life. I thought, God, I'm out. I'm free. I can get on with my life now. What can I get into? What am I going to do? And I find that as an adventure and excitement for me, making something succeed, being successful at something. I love putting things together, like the rubbish back then, and the security for the cameras back then. Then I was going into parking, something else. Now look where the parking, the ATM cameras are, and that, not ATM, what are they called? Vehicle recognition. Them ones. My friends do them now, but I was involved with them when they worked with companies I was involved in, and now they've gone off to be multi-millionaires of their own right. So I was doing stuff now that is way before I was doing stuff then way before its time.
Where do you think you would have been if you hadn't gone to jail?
Feet up, living a really prosperous life, enjoying life, and doing a lot more good in the world than I've been able to do. Because I share if I've got any money, I don't give a monkey's, I'll just give it out. I'll just spend money loosely, because it's meant to be used to enjoy and make people happy, I think. And once it's gone, get some more.
So this podcast is called Turning Your Adversity into an Asset, which is basically turning something shit that's happened to you and turn it into a good thing, right? You've had something happen to you. 20 years of your life's been taken away. I know that, there's so much we could dive into in terms of your aspirations to have that overturned and, mitigate that from your life. What else has that experience been able to give you, and where are you today, and what are you doing, and what other business ventures are you up to? I'd love to share some inspiration, because it's these stories that people listen to and say, holy, this guy's done 20 years in prison and is a convicted murderer, but yet he's got all this stuff and he's doing all this and he's happy. And I'm using all my stories in my head about how I can't be successful or I can't be happy. And they think, fucking hell, there's nowhere to go from here. So where are you today?
Probably there's two different types of thought pattern there. One's self-talking when it's in a negative light, because they're wrapped up in how they're feeling. And then there's positive light thought pattern where you want to go forward and you're excited. So this isn't a dress rehearsal of our life, is it? Let's face it, you got one go at it. And whether you go out the door, do a bit of charity work, I've tried to do things that make me happy. Seeing the better side of life, being happy. Prison has given me a much better understanding of people. It's definitely taken the sharp edges off of me. I'm more rounded now, more understanding. When someone tells you something, well, let's have a look at that, because that's their version. Let's have a see what somebody else says. Hence the kidnapping. That taught me a massive lesson, that I was told something that from a reliable source I trusted, and they got their facts wrong, that they gave to me wrong, and I kidnapped a fellow that hadn't done anything to do with it. So that, definitely going into prison, having cons tell you stuff, well, hold on a minute, that might not be quite right. It taught me a better negotiating skills with people. So I had a lot of problems from other people's problems, because the teenagers said on Constantine, I'd like to be a friend with him if I was in prison. So I had that, and as well as what I thought wasn't right would make me want to do something. So prison's it's taught me to be more compassionate, more understanding, slower to react to things. Definitely calmed me down, made me a nicer person, much nicer. Although I was a nice kid then, my actions of violence weren't nice. And I can't justify them as much as I say, well, this happened and that happened. Violence isn't the best way forward, but it does happen in this country. And sometimes, unfortunately, the John Wayne of the world is the only man that can sort it out when the police can't. So if a right arsehole in the area gets a good idea and it couldn't have happened to a better person who's been terrorising the neighbourhood for ages, police do nothing about him, I'm glad someone give him a bleeding right-hander. Deserves it. But then that can't be justified in this world, but it's a fact of life. So I believe prison, as well as the education, the book, has given me a better lifestyle. I've served that sentence and come out of it at the other end with various different opportunities that I might not have had if I hadn't gone to prison. And that's a positive way of looking at it, because how else should I look at it? If I focus on not seeing my children and stuff like that, what's the benefits of not seeing my children? None. None at all. Not for them and not for me. The only benefit of that is people may watch it and think, don't go to prison because it kills you. Kills your kids, has an effect on them. It's not good. Makes them strong, but it's not right. So I can look on that as a positive in terms of other people benefiting from it. However, things happen for a reason, or life shuffles the cards and we have to play. So I played with the best hand that I got. I've come out of it the other end, and I've got a nice lifestyle in terms of the people I associate with and what I do now, the filming, the book. I've designed a product from Europe and I import it into this country. So I design and sell my own homes. Module Manufacturing Limited, JVing with another company that launched in this country, and they're a tier 1 company, global. So that's great for me. We're just in negotiations and working together at the moment before we sign anything, but looking very, very positive. And a new way of lifestyle. I want to change my life. I'm desperate to get away from the rat race. Absolutely desperate. And focus on my case, primarily on that, the book, my family.
Your ultimate goal, is it just to get that overturned and get that conviction removed?
Get that overturned. So I want a new surroundings with my family for us all. Concentrate on us as a family. My business, restructure that so I'm more business development, bringing in my contacts and stuff like that. Obviously the filming, and that'd be it for me really. I'd be very happy.
Enjoy all that, the podcast, the TV shows, the books, and
I do enjoy them.
Yeah, it's good laugh, isn't it?
I have a laugh. I just enjoy having a laugh.
Because that likely wouldn't have happened if you hadn't have had the story and the journey that you had.
No, I'd have ended up a pole dancer after my recent activities.
I've seen on your Instagram you like to. You're pretty good at it, actually. Where did you learn that?
I didn't. I just jumped on it. I was a bit drunk and I hadn't been on one at all.
Exclusive from Kevin Lane. He's actually a pole dancer.
I've only been to a pole dancing club once. Twice actually. One was on a stag do and I left. I was with a pal of mine. I won't mention his name to come and it slipped and we slipped off. Another one, a friend. And again, I left. So all my friends have had, not all my friends, but a lot of my friends have had them. And it never interested me because I thought, well, I'm paying for that to be teased. And if you've got what you want anyway. The pole dancing thing, I seem to take to it naturally. I might have a little go at that again. Bit of exercise.
just for reference, Kevin did a little bit of a pole dance on his Instagram story recently. So if you're interested in seeing more pole dancing, you can follow him on Fitted Up and Fighting
The old
Back.
woman's got it in the bleeding front room. I don't know what people think when they come in. They think, what's she doing? They're going to do their own private lessons, their own private dances. It's a bit like that, but no, it's...
But what is your Instagram so people can check you out?
Fitted Up and Fighting Back.
Yep.
TikTok.
Same as that,
Fitted Up and Fighting Back.
TikTok, Instagram.
It's all that. So prison has taken me away from maybe the life I would have gone and the surroundings I would have been wrapped up in, to give me the opportunity to extract myself and have a change of lifestyle. You know, the lifestyle will say, oh, I'd love to do that, when this is what I've always wanted, but they don't get the chance to do it. Well, maybe I have the chance to do it, but it's the passion, and I want to do it, and I'm prepared to make that cut off. Well, I'll move hours away, in the middle of nowhere, like Exeter in the Downs, you know, the Yorkshire, I forget what they're called now down there.
Dales,
Yorkshire Dales, but anyway, if you've got to drive to somewhere, there's no lights there, you won't see no lights for miles, and what are you doing out here?
Yeah, that's the dream.
That's the dream for me.
Especially when you've had the complete opposite, you know, in prison, surrounded by people you don't want to be around. And
human warehouse, sardines. Yeah. So I've just been to see a place, just an area, and the gentleman who lived where he lives said, my daughter's sick, she goes off to look after the sheep over there. She's got her own sheep that she breeds, she's 6. We haven't locked her door in 3 years, and we don't lock our cars. I mean, God, what does that tell you? And just
unless you've got a couple of quid though, that's the only problem. You might get some...
I'm going to squat on common land owned by the government, because it's common land. No, it's not. But the further away you move, you can get a lot more for your money, and it's a completely different environment. So no litter. How mad is that to say that? You'll have public toilets that have got toilet paper in and clean. Come on. Like, crime rate zero. You know what I'm saying? So, fresh air, no chaos and sirens and ambulances driving around. Even in the outskirts of, say, the home counties, you hear sirens. And where I would like to go, you'd have to drive an half hour before I could hear a siren.
And that's not so you can get up to mischief either, is it? That's just so you can have a good night's sleep and just drink your hooch, do your pole dancing and have a good...
I practice my pole dancing. You took the words out of my mouth.
So I've got one last question for you, and I don't know how you will respond to this, but are you grateful for the journey you've been on, or are there regrets and things you wish hadn't happened?
Loads of regrets, Lewis. Charlie Bronson said he's got no regrets. Well, he's in an environment where he can't be seen to say, I regret things, because it's about punishment, wear you down. If he was living in a field, painting paintings, you say, oh, I've got regrets, some of the things I wish I hadn't done. But I have regrets. So I said this, the reason I said that, because I said this a little while ago about Charlie, you made me think about it. I have regrets. However, I am really grateful for the life I've got now. Regardless of the 20 years I spent in prison, it's moulded me, and whatever I've got left in life now will benefit others. And I will enjoy it in a manner that I may not have enjoyed it before if I hadn't gone to prison. I'd be a different person. I mightn't be dead.
Yeah.
I might have got shot or or something. However,
you left that one out.
Well, I got shot. Yeah, I got shot by a bleeding fella. He's a bit gobby at the minute, but if he wants to have a fucking grudge match straightener, I'd love it. And we can raise money for charity.
Right, one of those ones, okay.
Yeah, there. So he shot me, and I said, well, let's get it on, you're a boxer. I mean, you get it on in the ring.
Right,
yeah.
Legitimate style now.
I'd love to. Listen, I don't give a monkeys. But he shot me. He's a gobby little prick. Getting coked out of his head. He still gobs off now. It's on my life licence, isn't I? Years ago, I'd have gone and found him and punched his head in. And he knows it.
You can't do anything now.
Well, I might have bumped him in one night and have to deal with him in self-defence.
Yes, right, another book and spend another 20 years.
But if I return my conviction, I can go and knock on his door and say, now, what have you got to say to me?
Yeah.
All right? I can't do that in a minute. But I would love to do it. I really would love to do it. Don't believe me. Anyway, so
You still got that fighter in you, haven't you?
yeah, but in a nice way. You know, I'll punch your head in the ring.
Do you know what? I've already come up with the title for this podcast before I've even interviewed, and actually it came out perfectly. It was the nicest convicted murderer you ever meet. I'll even show you on my phone after.
Lewis,
the nicest
great.
convicted murderer you'll ever meet, and I think that's it. Yeah, there's a side to you, but
Do you know, that's lovely. Do you know the messages I get from fellow prisoners, and they say, such and such, my cousins, or they was away of you. They said you was really well liked, you're great company, didn't have a bad word to say about you. And I don't mean that to say, really, me, but for letting you really see how other prisoners see you, saying something complimentary about you, as well as prison officers and all sorts of people, lets you know that conviction of murder doesn't mean that I am not a nice person. And I'm grateful for that because it makes me feel good. But life's about living. So what we're meant to do, it's sad that people don't grasp that, but on a sunny day they feel better about themselves. But I feel you should try and do something in life that makes you happy, whether it's go for a walk or do a bit of charity work. That'd do a lot of people good who are suffering. Go and do some charity work. But I better stop because I'm going to waffle otherwise.
you've done perfect. Well, thank you very much. You've definitely turned your adversity into an asset. It's been a pleasure to have you here. Thank you very much.
Lewis, it's been a pleasure having you here, mate. Thank you very
Cheers.
much. The better dressed man than me when we met. I said, you're very dapper. I said, what have you done?